Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, like, comment, and subscribe. My name is Joanne. I am doing this video because it's something that I recently had to talk to my older kids about. They didn't know, but when I got married back in 2010, my husband and I, were just in our 20s. We weren't really thinking about kids right away. So we were in shock to find out that we were pregnant with triplets. Yes, triplets. We were, we were pregnant with triplets, and we were in complete shock. We were just like, oh my gosh, like we have to tell our families. But we didn't know what to do. Like, here we are, we didn't have like really good paying jobs, and we were living with my husband's parents, and we were like, where are we gonna put these triplets? But I initially went to the doctor to do an 8-week ultrasound because my pregnancy test was positive. And I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to go to my 12-week appointment. That was my next scheduled appointment. When I went at 12 weeks, is when, actually on that first appointment, when I was 8 weeks, my husband came with me. And the ultrasound tech, she was just like, she was talking to us, and she got really quiet. But she wasn't like, she didn't look down or anything like that. She was just like, with like a little smirk on her face. And I wasn't thinking anything because it was my first time ever going for an ultrasound. So she says, do you guys have like twins or triplets that run in your family? And we're like, no. Still, I'm not thinking anything. So she does the ultrasound, and I'm like, oh, do you see a heartbeat? She was like, yeah, I see a heartbeat. So I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, oh, I'm going to go get the doctor, and the doctor's going to come in and talk to you guys. So then the doctor comes in, and, she's looking at the ultrasound, and that's when she says to us, we see 1, 2, 3 heartbeats. And we were like, what? So, we were so excited. I remember taking the ultrasound pictures home. On my way home, one of our close friends, a couple that we would always hang out with, they called because I told her I had an ultrasound. So she called me, and she was like, how did everything go? And I'm like, I'm carrying triplets. And they were like, what? So my husband and I were just in shock, but so happy, like, oh my goodness. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be done after this. 3 kids, I'm going to be done. So excited, drove all the way to the house. I don't know if he told his parents right away, but I know I called my mom. My mom's like, wait, what? My parents were so excited. My mom was like already planning on like, trying to find out. She's like, I can't wait for your next, appointment to find out what you're going to have. And so I get to my 12-week appointment, and I go by myself because my husband's at work. And they're like, we don't see any heartbeats. And I remember my heart sank, my mouth dropped. I just remember my heart just beating so fast. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean you don't see a heartbeat? And I said, we have 3 babies. She was like, oh, I know. She's like, I don't see the heartbeat. She's like, 2 of them have completely stopped, and then the last one is like barely beating. So she was like, I don't think the last one would make it. And I remember I was like devastated. We already told our I had told my family. I was just like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? So I remember just falling into like a really bad depression, but part of me wanted to like try again. So that first miscarriage, I ended up having I just had like a passing is what they called it. They said to me, they were like, you could do a, I can't remember the term where they do it. I don't know, I think it's called like a DNC. I can't remember what it is, but she's like, or it could pass through. So she's like, more than likely in your case, it's going to pass through because, you're still so early in your pregnancy. So I said, let me go home. And I remember the passing because it was so painful. It just literally felt like a period. And I was just like a really bad cramping. I was just bleeding a lot. It was just like really bad. And I remember just going in my bed, like holding myself. My parents came over to comfort me because I really didn't have like anybody to comfort me, you know. So even though we were living with his parents, like I wasn't close to them. I'm still not, but it's like I needed comfort and they didn't know how to comfort me. So I needed, love. So I was so thankful that my parents drove all the way, to their house just to, you know, be there and be supportive. And my mom called me every day to check up on me. So this was in like April of 2011. So, at that point, I'm not thinking of a child, but I'm like, you know what? If we get pregnant again, it's not like we're preventing, having another baby. So fast forward the end of that year, 2010, December, we find out we're expecting again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Go to the 8-week appointment. They now confirm you're having twins. And we're like, what? They're like, yeah, we're having something. Like, well, we were just pregnant with triplets and that didn't work out. So automatic fear comes in me. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot lose these two. Like, mind you, this is going to be within a year. So January comes and I'm going to my 12-week appointment. And, once again, they're like, actually, I think they said one baby had a heartbeat, the other one didn't. So she's like, there's still a chance. But she was like, usually in these cases, they don't last. Like the baby's not going to, grow, especially with, the other one not having a heartbeat. So she's like, you could come to the next appointment. So I think they scheduled me like a week later and I went, and then they confirmed like, once again, I lost my twins. And I was just like, at this point, I was like a wreck. I was a wreck. I was crying. I didn't even tell anyone that we were having twins. I just said, I had a miscarriage. Nobody knew it was twins at that second time. And I just remember my husband and I were so down. Like we couldn't comfort each other because we were both just mourning. We were just mourning and grieving. And I was like, at that time I was like, how do you run to God when you feel like something so bad happened? Like, what do you do? How do you praise? How do you pray? How do you, have hope? I felt so hopeless. And I was just so down, and it had nothing to do with God, but I was just like, God, like, what did I do? Did I do something? I was like trying to figure it out. So for a while, I was just I was depressed. Here it is, 2011, 2012, 2013. I still wasn't pregnant, and I was just like so depressed. And then finally I was like, you know what? Like, God, there has to be, like, I have to have a baby. Like, I know I didn't get married and I'm just not able to conceive. So I was just like, here it is, 2013. And I finally said, you know what? I'm going to start praying. I'm going to, start praying and believing that I would conceive. So I went to like 2-3 doctors during in 2013, and they were telling me like, wow, you went through 2 miscarriages. Wow, you had triplets, you had twins. Oh my gosh. Like, one of the doctors was a man, and he literally said to me, you just need to accept the fact that you might not ever have kids. So he's like, you could keep trying, but he's like, if you haven't gotten pregnant by now, and you were pregnant in 2011, it's 2013, he's like, you would not naturally conceive. So I think you should see like a fertility doctor. And I was just like, this can't be, like, I'm at that point, I think I was like 24. And I was like, I'm still young. I'm like, I've clearly gotten pregnant naturally twice already. So, what would be the reason? But I really believe that it was God telling me like, hey, come to me. Like, stop going, stressing yourself out. So this is what really pushed me to go pray. So I ended up finding another doctor, and it had great reviews, and everybody's like, oh, they tell you, things that you could do, like drinking this, getting on certain prenatal vitamins. And they were like, just great reviews. They were a little distance from where I lived. I lived in down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida at the time, and they were like 30 minutes south from that. So I was like, you know what? Let me just go over there. It doesn't hurt. Let me go over there because I'm not going to the doctor obviously that I went to. So I went to this doctor, and so the front desk clerk says to me like, "Oh, I see you have an appointment, but the doctor that you're scheduled with is not here, so we have to put you with another doctor." And I'm like, okay, like the doctor I was scheduled with was who everyone was saying was a great doctor. So I was like, I don't, kind of was like, what do I do now? I already drove 30 minutes. Let me just see whoever the doctor is. So I remember sitting in the room, and a lady comes in, and I'm just staring at her because she just seems so peaceful. And I'm like, she comes in, she's like, what's your name? Tell me, why you're here. And I'm telling her, and I start to get like really emotional because I realized like I was still like sad over the miscarriages. And she says to me, she says, you are going to have a baby. She's like, I wanted a child, and I had a child. She's like, I wanted a child, and I was believing for a child, and I had a child. So she's like, if it happened for me, then it'll happen for you. And I don't know, that appointment gave me so much like confidence. So, sorry guys, I had to switch because my daughter was in the room. But yeah, that appointment gave me so much confidence. And I just remember like, feeling hopeful. I'm like, okay, everything's going to go well from here. And not only that, I was like, let me schedule another appointment with the same doctor. So I called the office, and I'm like, can I schedule an appointment with the lovely lady that I had, the doctor? They were like, we noticed that you came in, but we don't know the doctor that you went to. For some reason, it's blank. We don't know who you've seen. And they were like, we had different doctors there, so we don't know who saw you. So we can't schedule you because we don't know who you were seen by. So they were like, do you know who it is? And I'm like, it was, a white female doctor. And they're like, oh, we have a few here. So I'm like, what? So they're like, you could go on the website. We have photos, and just call us back. Her picture wasn't even on there. I'm telling you guys, I was like, I believe that was an angel godsend just to give me hope. I was at such a low point. I was so hopeless at that time. So I'm sorry guys, I had to switch because my daughter wanted to watch in my room. So I was just like, let me just pray. So I remember like, going to the living room in my house and just praying, going to church more, because at that time I wasn't really going to church because I was just like, it was just really hard. Like no one tells you, how to grieve. Like I never went through such a loss. So I didn't know like how to grieve, how to mourn. And I was just trying to figure out like, how do I keep going, feeling so hopeless. So I was just really down. I remember like getting a scripture, reading what the scriptures was saying about grieving, peace, a renewed mind. I was just finding specific scriptures on what I was battling with. And I just remember I just kept praying. Then I ended up downloading like a fertility app where it would track my ovulation. And I wasn't even really keeping up with that, but I was like, let me just do it, because every time I went to the doctor, they were like, when do you get your period, this and that. So I just wanted to keep up with all of that anyway. So I just felt really, I started to feel hopeful. I felt like, okay, I could overcome this and, keep going. So fast forward, I'm sorry, my daughter's walking around, but fast forward to going into the end of 2013, I ended up finding out that I was pregnant. Like what actually happened was that I thought I was getting my period. I wasn't, and then I found out I was pregnant. So I actually had my son, who, he's about to be 10, and then I had my daughter. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, thank God. So, but after that, which was during COVID, this was like 2020, 2021, I found out I'm pregnant again, and I'm like so excited. I'm like, okay, here's, we're gonna have another child. So, anyways, fast forward to, what was that, like 2000, I think that was like 2000, 13, 13 or whatever. So I've ended up seeing another doctor that actually no. So 2013 I found out I'm pregnant, I had my son. 2014 I had my daughter. Back-to-back pregnancies, a miracle. 2000, I think it was during COVID, so 2020 I get pregnant again. So I went to see a doctor that my friend was actually seeing at the time during her pregnancy. So something seemed very off with him. And then I had a miscarriage. So during my miscarriage, this is my third miscarriage, I knew I was having a miscarriage. I was having like really bad cramps. I was like, man, I'm in like a lot of pain. So went through the miscarriage and went back to him after. And he was just like, okay, you're taking prenatals, you're drinking water, let your body heal. But he was like, I see a cyst. So he's like, we need to get the cyst removed. So I was like, okay. Ended up getting the cyst. I ended up having surgery with him, getting the cyst removed. And, it took me it was like a 2-day healing process. It wasn't like extremely painful. And then he says to me, we're seeing like a bigger cyst and we need you to see a specialist. So I was like, okay. So he recommends a doctor. So I go to this doctor, and this doctor is like all over the place. He walks in, he's just all over the place. And I'm like, I was already uncomfortable. I was like, the fact that he can't even sit down, he's not even having like a personal conversation with me to see why I was sent there, was just already off to me. So I have an ultrasound, and he tells me, and it was so uncomfortable because I was so used to having an ultrasound with the female ultrasound tech, and here he is doing my ultrasound. So it was like, it threw me all the way off. And I remember he was just like, oh, look at the screen. He's like, you have a cyst here, a cyst here. He's like, I could bring you in tomorrow. We could slit you open and, take out your cyst and da-da-da. And he's like explaining the surgery, and I'm in shock because I'm like, this cyst is huge. And I was like, oh my goodness, like what's happening to my body? So I automatically am like sad. I'm overwhelmed with emotion. I'm like, what is going on? So, they tell me to go back to the front desk to schedule the surgery. And I literally went to her and I was like, I'm going to call you guys if I want to do it, but this is a lot for me. Like, this is my first appointment. It's a lot. That was the most uncomfortable ultrasound I've ever had. So I was like, if anything, I'll call you back. She's like, all right, whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, definitely not coming back. I leave there, call my husband. I'm in tears. I'm like, they said that I have to do this surgery, but I don't want to do it. And I believe that wasn't God's plan for me to have such a surgery like that. I'm like, what? I'm going to believe God for my healing. So anyway, I found out I'm pregnant again. Same thing happened and all of my miscarriages were between 10 and 12 weeks. So I have another miscarriage. This time my son hears me like crying, and he starts praying, asking God to touch mommy and touch mommy's body. He was just, that prayer was just something. It just really did something to me. So I ended up having my fourth and fifth miscarriage between 2020 during COVID to 2021. So 3 miscarriages within that 1 year. So I was just like, oh my gosh, my body is just stressed out. So it was just the most painful thing. And once again, I just, went back to prayer and believing and got through it. But I just want to share my story because I know a lot of women go through miscarriages. I was actually surprised when I actually pulled up forums and, mom blogs about how many women were dealing with miscarriage. Even after they had kids, they were still grieving the loss of that miscarriage. So if you're going through a miscarriage or know anybody who's going through a miscarriage, there's hope. Don't stop believing. Run to God. Pour out your heart to Him. Whatever you're feeling, if you're feeling hopeless, doubt, fearful, go to Him. Ask Him to help you through it. That's the only way that I was able to really get through it. Not only did He send me a doctor that I believe spoke life into me, but getting into my Bible, crying out, journaling helped me so much. I would always encourage getting a journal and just pouring your heart out to it. I journaled as if I was saying a prayer to God, and I said everything. Even if I was angry, I was pouring that out in the journal, and that helped me out so much. Don't give up hope, feel encouraged. Drink your prenatals, drink water. If you have to, change your diet. Whatever you need to do to get your body healthy, just do it. Don't give up. Believe, have hope, have faith. If you're not a believer, still believe. You know, just if you have to write down daily affirmations, like, I'm gonna get through this, you know, my body's healed, I will have a child, you know, just anything to push you and give you that hope, just do it. I just don't want anyone to stay in that state of mind, because you could get so stuck in a depression and hopeless that you just never mentally get out of it. So just be encouraged, believe, know that you will have a child. And yeah, I just wanted to share my story, because it was, I just didn't find anyone that I could speak to, because no one could relate to me. But now I know it's just so many women who have secretly gone through it and are just dealing with it on their own. Track your ovulation, you know, believe that you will have a child. If it's in God's will, it will work out for you. But yeah, I just wanted to share my story, and I'll see you guys on the next one.